Yeah, I agree with that neon sign. These two aren't too bright. We opened this week with a new intro in conjunction with Nana having just become a cure. And at first I thought it was animated by Ken Ueno since he did do the last one, but then I noticed that the outlines weren't nearly thick enough. So looking it up on Sakugaboru, apparently this is done by a fan artist with the pen name BB. Which, yeah, while they might not exactly qualify as a professional artist just yet, this is really good stuff, and apparently they also did Nana's wing shield, so yeah, good stuff to the evil little virus from the moon cell. The episode proper also opened with Nana, this time on the piano, to establish how she had become a regular at her teammate's cafe. And speaking of that team, word of Cure Wing had already spread through another video of the Precure's finisher having been illegally uploaded. Hey, don't cut to me. I make sure to edit down the stuff as much as I can. No, of course, it was again Precure who got another afro for her troubles. Yeah, Queen Iris should probably consider upping the punishment if she just keeps doing this. Fortunately, talk about them was already dying down thanks to an established big idol retaking the spotlight with this dude named Kaito Hibiki. Doesn't do anything for me, as I associate those names with some much more interesting characters. Not helping matters was how his auto-tune singing was just not for me. I mean, I get that they really tried to make a big deal out of the fact that this character was being voiced by an actual idol named Daisuke Sakuma from the group Snowman, but again, I don't really care about idols, especially IRL. Fortunately, he did at least have some decent voice acting experience, having played Michiru Hazuma from the recent Card Fight Vanguard series, which we would soon hear as the idol just kind of arrived at their cafe for no real reason. He was incognito, but our resident idol fangirls could see right through it. That said, Nana was wondering why he was in Japan, as supposedly he was supposed to be studying abroad in New York. Well, the answer to your question is right there. They wanted him to go to New York, of all places. Regardless, Uta still believed that he was working hard on his idol career, so she tried to get close to him to get some pointers. Thus, she tried to serve him without looking like a total spaz, which she didn't, at least compared to the rest of her family. As after Mr. Sakura yelled about them being out of pasta to his whole cafe, he just ran out while his wife and second daughter gave chase because he forgot his wallet. You say this episode was written by the daughter of the guy who gave us this. Yeah, we'll talk more about this week's writer and her credentials at the end, but for now, Uta had been left in charge of the cafe, under the impression that it'd be a slow lunch hour.
A few minutes later.
Rule 1 of comedies, never ever say any variation of what's the worst that could happen. Not helping matters was the fact that their customers were rather impatient, like, y'all know you should at least wait your turn, right? Fortunately, Kaito volunteered his services for no real reason other than that he was a nice guy. Well, that and Toy likely wanted to milk this idol dude for all he was worth. Thankfully, Nana broke up this obvious pandering by being legit the best character of this whole episode, and slightly pointing out how they could get those pointers that Uta wanted by imitating Kaito's service. She especially wanted the intel because she figured it could also help with their Precure work, so yeah, good on her for being proactive. With that, they observed as the pro idol pretty much took over the whole operation of this cafe.
お待たせしました。クッキーのワンちゃんは君とお友達になりたいって。
But this is just how I eat my cookies. Yeah, this whole bit was basically just Uta being completely outmatched by Kaito in spite of having worked at this cafe for much of her young life. I guess it was kinda funny, and would serve as a part of a decent moral later, but it also didn't quite make Kaito an endearing character when he just came off as a bit of a Gary Stew, especially when he gave his reason for his superior serving skills.
ドラマでウェイター役をやったことがあるんだ。
知ってます。ウェイターは見たですよね。
So, it's literally not that you're a waiter, you just play one on TV. Like, I get studying for the role, but I kind of doubt that he'd get that good for it. In fact, in many cases, I'm pretty sure they just use stand-ins for many scenes. Hell, Uta would even lampshade this later, which doesn't exactly fix the issue, but I'm kind of glad that they addressed it at least. Still, yeah, it does feel like a bit of a forced way to make Kaito someone Uta should aspire to be like. Anyway, Uta's parents finally came back, which let the three punch out for the day. Kaito decided to take off, while Uta notably sulked that he completely upstaged her, while again Nana proved to be best girl, by asking what was in his opinion the most important aspect of being an idol.
また会いたくなる人でいたいと思ってる。楽しみに思ってもらえるような人。
Honestly, not a bad answer, but doesn't that sound more like a host than an idol? But yeah, with all the focus on this dude, you'd think he'd be the victim of the week, and yet Prude's spoiler vision revealed there was going to be this random customer lady who actually was a slave to the 9 to 5, and only started to shine a little after getting a little solace from visiting the cafe. Yeah, it feels like the villains are already lowering their standards if they're going for anyone who's having a sudden burst of dopamine. Oh hey look, there's a drunkard, maybe you should get him too. That said, it does kind of make me wonder how much Kaito was actually shining. I mean, obviously he's good at what he does, and yet based on his earlier answer to Nana, there is a bit of a sense that he feels unfulfilled in his work as an idol. That might even be why he returned to Japan early, aside from the fact that no one should want to stay in New York. And ironically enough, in spite of seeing herself as being lesser to him in every way, Uta did have something on her side of the fence that was greener, with her innocent and non-auto-tuned singing. Anyway, we did bring up that random victim lay, right? Well, Cuddy found her and created a cream soda monster that was actually kind of terrifying as its suds were acidic. Thus, Uta and Nana arrived on the scene, and I think did a Precure reference of all things. Okay, come on Toei, just let Chiaki-kun do a cop here season. Y'all already have 2 Fuzz Sentai, so why not? Speaking of which, the action this week was actually on par with that brief test animation, with all of it being presumably done by an animator who went by Ache, which is quite the name. Though they do have some legit credentials, including Digimon Ghost Game, one of the few actual fight scenes in Wonderful, and OKKO? But yeah, the action here was really well done and dynamic, and even really expressive with how they got across the Cure's distress over this customer they just served a few minutes ago being driven into such a state. My favorite bit was them actually canceling a double rider kick by bouncing off each other. That was just impressive. However, it also led to the monster's attack melting an overpass that Old Man Mobius was under, but fortunately he was saved by Kaito. That's a lie, and you know it. Also, Cuddy, you might want to put that hand down or else you're gonna get cancelled. Anyway, with some good teamwork, the Cures managed to take down the monster, and it's cherry bombs. Okay, I love those sorts of puns. Though it also gives me an idea.
Ah, yes. I see it now. From the very beginning, checkmate was yours.
Afterwards, Uta reflected on their battle, and she did rightfully acknowledge that she did act like a bit of a brat towards Kaito just because she was envious of his abilities. That at least led to a good moral of the day, and does seem to be an ongoing arc for her about keeping her developing idol ego in check. It was then that she heard Kaito singing on the beach and sounding way better without all of the auto-tuning. She joined in, and afterwards, Kaito did seem to hint that he preferred to sing more freely and in open areas like the beach than in the studio. With that, Uta finally properly thanked him, and in turn, Kaito admitted that he admired her singing, and oh boy, I think I see a ship in the distance. However, the episode then ended on a bit of a cliffhanger with Archer coming in to reveal that he knew that they were the Precure. And yeah, I know this character does have a name, but they didn't give one this week, so I'll just refer to him as my favorite servant based on his voice actor. This was another solid enough episode, mostly thanks to the fight scene. I mean, Kaito isn't a bad character or anything, but this introduction for the character was just kind of there. They could certainly take this character in some interesting directions, like making him a disillusioned performer, because right now, he's just kind of bland. The writer this week was Akiko Inoue, who, as we mentioned in the Mirai Days review, did write a lot of the original Mahotsukai Precure, and is currently writing Gojuger, whose second episode actually aired an hour right after this show on the same channel. And just based on that body of work, she does seem to take a lot of influence from her dad, Toshiki, a veteran tokusatsu writer, who's infamous for being kind of batshit insane. And while this episode didn't quite reach those levels, or at least not Gojuger's first episode, I did kind of get a sense of the Inoue family style of exaggerated character writing, in particular when it came to Kaito. With characters like him and Hoyoru, they do tend to exaggerate their abilities to make them stand out more, whilst also generating comedy by making everyone else seem lesser than them. However, with this show, and since they didn't really go over the top with it, Kaito just ended up feeling like a bit of a Gary Stu. Not totally like one just yet, and I actually appreciate that he's a pretty chill dude, but yeah, he's still kind of bland. Fortunately, they do seem to be hinting towards him being a struggling artist who is trying to find his muse, which might end up being Uta. On that note, I do actually kind of like the relationship between these two, not in the shipping sense, but more in that the idol in training is trying to aspire to be like him, while the fully realized one actually admires aspects of her, perhaps including the freedom to sing the way she wanted, which if that was the purpose of all of that bad auto-tuning, that would actually be kind of brilliant. Kaito might be an artist who's trying to break away from all of the overproduced crap that he's currently putting out. We'll see what directions they end up going with him. But for now at least, this week probably had the best fight of the series so far, as though both the show and the cures are starting to find their legs. For that, and the potential in Kaito's character, this was a pretty solid episode. We'll see what Kaito can bring to the show, which hopefully won't include this creepy ass smile. Thanks for watching, and if you want to be my idol, well, I would appreciate if you just watch some of our other videos on this channel too. We've got videos coming out almost every day, with some of them, as we said, having some overlap in terms of their staff. Look forward to Red Ranger Isekai tomorrow, and until then though, farewell for now my friends, and okay, stop smiling like that for God's sake.